Welcome back. You're with the playlist. Next up, the seemingly unlikely entity that is Extra Golden. It partners Kenyan Benga music with American rock, creating a clever hybrid that lands the band somewhere between classic American rock from the South and Afropop. This Kenyan contingent started making music in Nairobi amidst all the political strife that Kenyans have suffered under. Now paired with American guitars, the sound is progressive rock with African rhythms. Kenyan-influenced rock up now on the playlist.
I'm Alex Minoff, and I play guitar and sing.
I'm Kim Paul Onyango, and I'm singing in Extra Golden.
I'm Ian Eagleson, and I play guitar.
I'm Steven Onyango, and I'm playing drums and singing too.
The playlist caught up with Extra Golden on the British leg of their most recent tour to see how their mix of American rock and Kenyan Benga was going down with audiences.
Right now we're on our way into London to perform tonight at the Roundhouse. I think people are a little taken aback when they first hear us on this tour because we're not really what people normally expect to hear when they're coming to see African music.
The seeds of Extra Golden were sown in Nairobi in 2004, when the American half of the band hooked up with two Kenyans for a jam session.
The combination that we are doing, like mixing rock and Benga, that has never happened. I think in the world, there's no people who have done that before.
Extra Golden's fusion leans more towards the Western indie rock style, I think, and that may be down to the way the guitars dominate. The guitars don't really sound that African. It's the rhythms and the singing and I think the drummer that gives it that Kenyan sort of Benga basics.
Benga is a high-energy, guitar-based dance music that came out of Kenya in the late 1940s. It got its start when musicians from the Luo and Kikuyu tribes took their traditional songs and juiced them up with electric guitars. The name Benga means something beautiful.
In Kenya, like my friends, there's so many like it because they say, okay, this is sounding great. But the question they're asking is, how are you combining all these things together? We do that because in rock and Benga, the tempo is one.
Sometimes we call it Brock, but it's a pretty clumsy name, so I don't think it's sticking around, but it's fun. It's fun to say. We like to Brock people.
Yeah, I've heard very good things about it.
There's not a lot of bands in where you're getting this indie mixed up with world music, as it's called.
These guys, they're playing nice.
And I think the only band I could compare them to is probably Dengue Fever, who mix kind of West Coast American psychedelic rock and Cambodian pop of the pre-Khmer Rouge era in the 1960s. And that's gone like globally successful. And I think the same could happen with Extra Golden.
However, Extra Golden's career was almost stillborn in the U.S. when the band's Kenyan musicians were refused permission to travel to a music festival in Chicago. So they approached the then junior senator from Illinois, an up-and-coming politician whose father happened to come from Kenya.
We never set out to make political music explicitly, but I think a lot of the things that this band has had to go through in order just to exist at all, like getting visas for Kenyan musicians to come to the U.S. is almost impossible. And without the help of Chicago World Music Festival and Barack Obama, we could never have done it, logistically or financially.
The band felt it owed Mr. Obama, so they wrote him a song. Come 2007, Kenya erupted in post-election violence, and the Kenyan members of the band were facing fresh difficulties.
People couldn't go out on the streets. Nightclubs were closed for months, so musicians couldn't work, so these guys were out of work, and they all have families, large families to support. Ian and I put out some word, and people spread it around, and we asked for donations from our fans of $5. People sent money in droves, just small amounts of money, but it added up, and we were able to send that money to them and other people in Kenya to help out a lot of people just to get by in that time, which was very difficult.
Extra Golden, I mean, is one of the first proper bands to come out, which is a mixture of the two worlds. They feel like a proper band rather than an ensemble. You feel there's a genuine connection and exploration between the two sides of the band, the African and the American.
Extra Golden has a few things going for it: a unique sound and a connection to the most powerful person in the world. They are set up to succeed.
But I think in the future, I'm hoping our band is going to be huge and it's going to be popular everywhere. Even in Kenya, we are going to block those people there in Kenya. I know that we are going to block them too.
Extra Golden on the playlist. To find that out and again, just check out the website. There's more in store this season on the playlist as we continue to seek out the world's best musical fusions. If you haven't heard of Hip Life, that's probably because you've never been to Ghana. That's among our destinations coming up on the series, and here's a sneak preview.
Callers wanna try continental hip life affair. We run through Kanye from 4 mics and 1 spear. Hip life is locked down in your ear, y'all hear?
Plus, we're checking out music that's coming out of South America, Latin fusions from Colombia's Choquib Town, and others. That's what's coming up, but some of the best ideas we've had on this show haven't come from us, they've come from you, our viewers. So email us about musical fusions you think we should be looking at. We're at playlist@aljazeera.net. That's how you get with the program. We'll leave you this week with more Pakistani rock fusion from the Mikal Hassan Band. And we'll see you next time on the playlist on Al Jazeera.